Hey, uh, so let me wait a couple of, or not a couple of minutes, just a moment while, people start, coming in. Because, I mean, I feel I have something important to say. I know other people will probably watch the replay. Anyway, all right, letting people kind of figure their way out. All right, hey. All right. So one of the cool things about being a therapist and like being just like trained to just listen and observe is that it's not that hard to turn off. It really isn't. But like there are some times where I'm watching a movie and my brain starts going, and there's like so many ways to interpret mythology and movies and all of these different things that it's like, oh my gosh, like what is this? What is this? I don't watch a lot of movies, so like I can't really say too much about like any recent movies. But I'm like, okay, let's see, what's a movie that some people have seen, like what is that? Like the recent not 007, the James Bond movie. That's an interesting one to interpret because you can interpret it as like, I know when I left, I was like, oh, you know what? I think that if we just take, James Bond as the main character and then just kind of like go off as like every person who he interacted with is a part of himself, then you can kind of understand why some people needed to die in that movie. Because I know, oh my gosh, the female character, not Miss Penny, the other one, had passed away in that movie, and it's like, well, the female version of himself, that part that was nurturing him, had died. It had passed. So there's this really interesting things where like as much as I can turn off the therapy, sometimes I can't turn off the education. I also am deeply interested in mythology and in interpretation. So there were many, many books that I've read, especially the ones by Marie Louise von Franz, who is a Jungian Jungian therapist like myself, and she would just take these myths and just like tear them apart and put them back together, and, especially with the Jungian uh, like spin on it. So her books are really interesting. I know I have a couple of them that are just like fairy tales that she's like, I'm going to interpret these. Like, all right, that's pretty cool. I think she was also a student of Jung, if I'm not mistaken. So really interesting interpretations, and she really like just kind of like took on her own on it. And the cool thing, and the thing that I love about Jung, one of the things is that Jung knew all sorts of myths, like just all like I swear he just traveled and like knew myth. And he's the one that kind of developed these things called archetypes, and like how people are playing out different archetypes in their life and kind of in other people's lives as well. And like he could tell you, and I can't, but like I love this idea. He could tell you what myth you were playing out. The cool, like, there's so many times where I try to keep like trade secrets, where I'm just like, I don't want to tell you too much, but this is one of the things that is, it's in one of the early books that I've read. I don't like this person, but I do read their books. Oh my gosh, the book is called The Creative Journal. In The Creative Journal, she goes over this one art directive where it's like, draw a treasure map. And, pretty much if you put any like, what is that, challenge within that, that's like kind of the challenge that you have. Probably better if you do it with an art therapist than if you kind of do it on your own. But of course you can explore on your own and kind of see like what are your blocks, like in your treasure map and all of that. Yeah, I mean, for Jung, I just think that it's amazing that he could tell someone like what myth they were going through and how the hero went through it. And like there's a couple of movies that I do refer to quite frequently. The Neverending Story is a great one because he has to go through the like 1,000 mile, whatchamacallit, the 1,000 mile of the swamp, like all of that. He has to go through it, and he loses his best friend, his support, in the middle of it. So at the point of his despair is when Falcon, right, comes in and takes him out of it, kind of like an angel or whatnot. But like, you know, I think so many people have been through those moments where they're like, this is never ending. I'm never going to get out of this. And then something comes along and brings them out of what they were experiencing, right? Like that's a whole thing. And like just how many things, like he had to go on this journey and he didn't even know what he was doing. Like it just, he was told he had to do it. You know, how many times has anyone been in the middle of like a journey and just been like, oh, this is what I was supposed to be doing? Oh, well, okay. Well, now that I'm in the middle of this, I guess I'm gonna have to complete it, right? So yeah, I mean, there's definitely some interesting movies that definitely helpful. You know, and I also use Peter Parker, and nope, sorry, wrong one. I use the Hulk. I use the Hulk as a good, you know, kind of narrative for coping skills. You know, like you got to find a way to not have the Hulk. Like he had it down, like in the Incredible Hulk, where he was like, oh, my heart rate is getting a little high there. If I go a little bit further, then I'm gonna rage. I need to do something that doesn't get me to anger, that gets me to a point where I'm okay, you know. And that's definitely something, you know, that can be used in therapy, and used just overall. And again, it's really hard sometimes to shut off the therapist and be like, no, it's fine, I can enjoy a movie. But then yeah, there's other times where it's like, okay, here's the psychological interpretation at that point. Yeah, so I mean, it does become very interesting. I don't know why I don't watch movies, but you know, there's some reason why I don't, and you know, it's just one of those things. I'm sure that I could, you know, write psychological movie reviews, you know, just to like, just for fun, you know. Anyway, it's at the end of a long day, and so I'm going to sign off, and I hope everyone has a great weekend, and I will talk with you soon. All right. Have a good one.